All right, let's get started with the prayers. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu,
गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्.
All right. Thank you, Shiramya ji. And can we just make sure that we all stay muted so that we don't have cross conversations? Okay. So, Nitinji, do we want to do that segment first, or should we just proceed?
No, carry on, carry on. When
Okay.
you're done between, you can give it to me. And just a couple of slides. I wanted to walk through.
You just let me know, okay, whenever.
No, carry on.
Okay. So last week, we discussed the Bhagavad Gita verse 5.26, where we basically learned about this process where what we are saying that, through our performing our duties in God consciousness, we end up purifying our mind. In the process, we also acquire knowledge. We process it through Shravanam, Mananan, and Nididhyasan. And we are renunciating our ego, surrendering it to God. So there is a renunciation. So it's not like karm sannyas, but karm yoga in the right spirit, where you are renunciating attachment with external objects and focusing on offering everything that we do to God. And that's how we ultimately achieve eternal peace. So today we are going to focus on looking at a little bit of glimpse of meditation, how meditation is to be performed. And the next chapter, chapter 6, is all about Dhyan Yoga, which has very systematically, in a very elaborate way, talked about different aspects of how Dhyan or meditation is performed, specifically Ashtang Yoga. So there are 8 limbs of it. But like the 2 shlokas that we are going to discuss right now are mainly just giving a little bit of peek into that process. So I can start with the recitation and then few of us can just practice it. Sparshan kritva bahirbayan चक्षुश्चैवन्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ यतेन्द्रियमनोबुद्धि मुने मोक्षपरायणः विगतेच्छाभयक्रोधो यः सदा मुक्त एव सः. Yeah, whoever wants to recite, I think one person can recite one of the shloka. It's a little difficult, but I think we can try. Anybody? Aparnachi, Radhe Radhe, please go ahead.
Radhe Radhe. You can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Sparshan kritva bahirbahyans चक्षुषैवान्तरे भ्रुवोः प्राणापानौ समौ कृत्वा नासाभ्यन्तरचारिणौ.
Yeah. Thank you. Shri Ramya ji?
Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe.
Sparshan. I'll go with the next one, Yatendriya, or same one?
Yeah, you can go with the next one. Yeah.
Okay. Yatendriya mano buddhir munirmoksha parayanaha vigatecha bhaya krodho yasada mukta eva saha. Thank you.
Okay, so if there are no more hands, we can just proceed with the translation. So as informed earlier, we are looking at like 4 different commentaries of Bhagavad Gita. And I have picked up translation from one of those. It's very much similar across all the 4. So these 2 verses together are talking about shutting out all external objects, fixing the vision between the eyebrows, making the inward and outward breaths move within the nostrils evenly, and the sage who has controlled the senses, mind, and intellect, who is bent on liberation, who has cast away desire, fear, and anger, is ever liberated. And word by word meanings are written here, which we can look at. But so we'll move forward with a very simple exercise. So I'll bring forth names of few objects and we can classify them as being external or internal.
I hope that everybody enjoys this.
Okay. Shri Ramya, you have your hand raised from before, but anybody ice cream, food, whether it's external object or internal, how would you classify it?
External object.
Okay, I think mostly people will agree. If anybody wants to disagree, please raise your hand. Next one, eyes. Anybody?
Both.
Okay. Pratusha ji, yes?
External.
Actually, yeah, that's also external. Name, our name.
External.
Manvita ji, yes?
External.
Okay, we are seeing consensus. It's building. Our occupation. Okay, I think let me just move forward a little faster. I'll be like, if you feel any object that I put across seems to be internal, so you can raise hand and say, okay, maybe it's internal, not external. So occupation, I think people think family members, external. Our mind, external.
Internal.
Internal.
Okay. Fair enough. I think one should define this more clearly, right? But okay, if I say temporary versus permanent, if I say that whatever I'm calling right now external is temporary, and whatever I want to call as internal is permanent, eternal. So what do you think? Where do you think mind will be classified as?
External.
Yes, Raji? Yeah, Pratusha.
Internal.
Okay.
Internal, that is permanent.
Mind is not really permanent, right?
Objection. You have.
Yes, Nitinji.
I think it's external, right?
Yeah, I would also. Yeah, it is also still external. And Nitinji, you want to add something?
No, it's external, yeah. Nitya and Anitya, we are trying to differentiate, right? What is
Yeah.
something that, yeah, what is temporary and what is there always?
Soul.
Soul
Whether
is
it's external, internal.
Soul is definitely internal. Maybe mind is
Internal.
not, but soul is internal. And
Yes.
if any person is turned through soul means that is going to be the permanent. Yeah, I'm wrong for that mind thing.
Fine. So I think we all agree on this. Soul is definitely internal. Country, I think external, everybody can say this. So things associated with our so-called bodily identity, right? They are definitely external. Our mind and intellect, which are concerned with our subtle body, they are also external. God. What do you think about God? External, internal, super soul.
Everywhere.
Huh?
Both both
Everywhere.
external.
Everywhere. And when the criteria is permanent versus transient.
Permanent.
Yeah, permanent.
Okay, so I think we are all at the same page. So that, now the question is, so whatever we have classified as external, do you think that is a barrier to our spiritual progress? Nitinji, you were saying something.
Putting me in a spot. If we
You were-
consider Anitya as Nitya, then yes, it is barrier to our spiritual progress. If we relate our identity to any one of it, so yes, it is.
Perfect, as always. So, okay.
That is the first thing, right? We had discussed, I think, earlier also that the first mistake that happens is ignorance, right? The that ignorance aspect of it, where we start relating ourselves to the Nitya thing, and then the compounding mistake happens, right? We consider ourselves related to our family members. We think we are our mind, we are our intellect, what we see. So that's where the problem starts happening. Yeah, it is a barrier. Yes.
Yes. So yeah. So on their own, these objects or any of the external thing is not really a barrier, but yes, our inclination, our attachments to them can make them a barrier, and our false understanding of associating ourselves with them.
We associate as such, not as such
Right.
they are not. Yeah.
Exactly. And that is why, so today's shloka that we are going to discuss, that is a process to help us to associate. Okay, mute. Yeah, that's a process for us to dissociate ourselves from our false association and perishable identities through the process of dhyan yoga or meditation in general. So sadhana, how can one do, right? And this is something which is essential for people trying to achieve God via any of the prescribed paths. So this is like a non-negotiable thing that everybody is supposed to do. And as we just discussed, it's not the external objects, but our assumed affinity or attachment for them, which becomes an obstacle for God realization. So now in this shloka, as I said, we are going to learn how can we systematically take steps to rise above these attachments and these fluctuations that happen at the level of these external objects. So first one is like really external, which are the objects that our senses associate with. As you know, we were talking about ice cream, food, different things that our senses perceive. So how to so the first part of the shloka is sparshang kritva bahirbayan. So shutting out the external objects. So how can one shut out the external objects? If someone is following the path of karma yoga, by performing their duties in the service of God, you eventually through this practice can end up having detachment with the external objects because your focus is only on the God. So that is performing your duties and offering the results to God is the process of developing the focus and getting rid of attachment to sense objects. On the path of Gyan, it is the knowledge. You acquire the knowledge that I am not the body, I am the soul, I am not the perishable thing. So anything that's perishable is not attached to me, and that's not going to lead me towards my goal. And on the path of bhakti, it's about developing a relationship with God. When one develops it, automatically as a result, we will. So it's like because we have one mind, it can be only in one place. So if it is getting attached to God, it will automatically get detached from these sense objects. So that's really the first part, which is shutting out the external objects. Then there is next level, which is our gross body. So our gross body consists of various things. We are right now talking about senses. So one of the sense that we like most of us always utilize is our eyes, right? And it's important to reduce the fluctuations experienced by our eyes to be able to focus on the inside and on the God. So this particular verse has talked about fixing the vision of eyes between the eyebrows. So this is part of the meditation. So it is suggested. Let's actually discuss this. So how are we going to control our eyes and why it's important? So when one is doing meditation, you can either keep your eyes open. What happens if you keep your eyes open? You will see everything around you and you will ultimately end up getting distracted, especially if you are a beginner practitioner, right? Other extreme is keeping it closed. If you keep it fully closed, then there is high chance that one can just fall asleep instead of focusing on the practice of meditation. So the suggested thing is in between, which is kind of half closed eyes, but like the way I understand is closed, but you need to focus on something even with closed eyes. So you have to keep your eyes or vision active at that point of time. By that, I understand that it's more about visualization. So in this particular shloka, it is said that you can, as a beginner, one can try to focus between the two eyebrows by keeping the eyes closed. We talk about like the third eye, right? Like of Shiva. And so I think focusing there, or it is also said at the tip of your nose. But the idea is that you need to keep your process of meditation active, um, so that suppose if one is chanting, then you can actively chant as opposed to getting distracted by external or falling asleep. So that is restraining one of the sense organ in order to develop focus. And the next sense organ restraining that is talked about is breathing process, which is inhaling and exhaling. So I'm not able to wait. Sorry. Yeah. So this prapannau samau kritva nasyabhantar charinan, which means that balancing our inhalation and exhalation. So our inhalation is called apana and exhalation is called prana. And usually we breathe in slowly and we breathe out faster, which is again imbalanced. And the idea of person who does meditation properly is to have these two balanced. So as part of, as I said, level 2 control, it's important to practice balancing these two. And, I think most of us know about the pranayam, and that will be discussed more elaborately in the next chapter. But for now, these are the two levels at which it is talked about. One can practice balancing act for the gross body. Yes, Nitin.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, see, eyes are important because I think 2/3 of the electrical activity that happens in our brain is because of our eyes, vision. We keep looking around, right? So a lot of energy um, is consumed because of our vision in our eyes. So when we control that, that tries to bring in the focus, especially on the object of meditation that we are trying to do, or if we are trying to focus it between the eyebrows. And that is why the vision is very important. And the breathing, why breathing is important is because what I heard was when we do pranayam, those of you practice pranayam, your breath is harmonized, right? So when your mind is calm, your breath is harmonized. And it works conversely as well. If you forcefully harmonize your breath, like you do it through pranayam, your mind will also become stable. So it works both ways. And that is why both the aspects are very important in the practice of meditation. The dhyan, even tratak dhyan or even meditations that you do, vision is important because eyes can consume a lot of energy and it can distract your neural activity, especially if it is looking at so many things and getting distracted. And breath is important. And in fact, yogis, if a yogi meets another yogi, they can recognize just by virtue of their breathing pattern. That is how tranquil, peaceful, and harmonized their breath is. So that is why breath is important as well. So that's why there's a lot of focus on pranayam, where we simulate that by sitting and trying to do all those practices where we can harmonize our breath. So that's why these two aspects are important. Just wanted to add that. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. That makes so much sense. In fact, I think I've heard that like expert Ayurvedic practitioners can figure out what disease you have only basically observing your breath patterns, right? So that does make a lot of
True.
sense.
And even in pranayam, if you look at it, when you are upset, you will be breathing typically throughout the day. We are breathing from one nostril only, right? And when you do pranayam, both the nostrils you start breathing, and then that harmonizes your brain activity as well, and you feel more tranquil and peaceful. So that is the way to enforce that as well. But yeah, check it out. You will be breathing from one nostril. I mean, I didn't know that. Somebody told me, it was like, yeah, that's what is happening. But after pranayam, you start doing it from both. So yeah.
Yeah,
So, go ahead.
cool. Shri Ramya ji, yes, Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe, one question. We discussed, is it good to mix two aspects of the parts of yoga, like how you said karma, dhyan, and then bhakti. Like say, as part of my dhyan, I'm focusing between my eyebrows. But at the same time, we discussed this earlier, right? When we're breathing in, we say Ra, and when we breathe out, we say The. So we are combining bhakti also with dhyan. So is it encouraged that we mix those two? Or we focus only on dhyan, we get better, and then get bhakti aspect? Like how do you see it? How do you suggest this?
Okay, I'll give my 2 cents on that. I think all these three go hand in hand, right? It's not like exclusivity around this. Your knowledge, you're gaining knowledge because of which you are sitting into that practice, right? So if you are doing half closed eyes and that helps you visualize, or do Radhe if you're doing Nam Jap along with Chintan or visualizing God, if that is helping, you can mix and match. There's no inhibitions as such. You can do a cocktail of all the things, anything that works. But as you would progress, you would see you getting attached to something in particular, right? For example, some people say when they sit in dhyan, all they want to do is listen to a bhajan and the leela, they enjoy the leela ras. Some people say they are so attached to the name that they can only focus on the name itself. Some say that we like the mantra recitation, that gives them a good feel. They got so much attached to the mantra because they've been doing it for a while. So anything that works, the key thing is to take our mind to God. And God doesn't say only if you do it and not do this, then only, it'll be fruitful. So anything that works, that helps you, deepen your practice, I think that's fine. You can mix and match whatever works for you.
So the best is we try out and evaluate, like, and see what.
See where you settle down. So anything is fine, basically. Some people like to do open eye meditation also. It doesn't work for me. I'm willing to take a risk of sleeping, but I do the closed eye only. The half eye doesn't work for me. So whatever works for you. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, and just to like add, I think one thing, like for me, what I understand, it's like first thing is to just get disciplined and maintain consistency in doing it on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So whatever helps in doing that, enabling that, we should at least focus on that. And of course, we understand our purpose, and through these satsangs, we keep reminding ourselves, right, that what is our whole purpose of doing this. But discipline is like really essential in this process, I feel. Okay. All right, moving forward. Okay. Do you see my, no, it didn't change, right? Okay. Yeah, so the third part, like we talked about shutting down the external sense objects. Then now we talked about controlling our senses. Now coming to an even subtler layer, which is our mind intellect layer, right? So that's part of our subtle body. So it is important to control that as well. And it is actually more like a tug of war that goes on for most of the strivers who have not attained perfection. And this war happens between our senses and our intellect. And what is getting pulled by both of them is our mind. So that is, so what is ideal situation? That our intellect is supposed to be supervising the mind, not the senses. But because we have not reached at that stage, both of them try to control the mind, and there, for most of the strivers, there ends up being a tug of war. And that is something we have learned earlier also through this analogy, chariot analogy from Katnishar, where, you know, all the five horses, there are five horses and there are reins through which they are being held by the charioteer. So the five horses are referring to the five senses, and the reins are actually the mind, and the charioteer is the intellect. So ideally, it's not the horses, but the charioteer, which is supposed to guide where the chariot should go. I mean, ideally, in fact, the passenger, which is our soul. But right now, we are talking at the level of intellect. So it's the intellect which should be guiding the senses. But right, unless we have learned to control, strengthen our intellect with the right knowledge, the other way around also happens, and that's the tug of war. But for a perfected rishi, yogi, saint, uh, they are following the right direction, where the charioteer, the intellect, is controlling the mind, and not the other way around. Nitinji, do you want to add something?
No, I think you explained well. So yeah, the reins is the mind, which should be controlled by intellect, and then the senses, as you can see. Also, I wanted to call out the difference between gross body, subtle body, and causal body, right? Are we getting into causal body also today? There are three
Yeah,
bodies that we have.
yeah.
Okay, yeah. I just want to set the context so that we can easily, gross body, we all know, right? It's not gross in literal sense. I mean, it's material body, composed of our senses and all. Now they reside in a subtle form as well, which becomes, see, when we are awake right now, our gross body is in action, right? The kriyas that we are doing, the actions that we are performing. When we are asleep and we are dreaming, then all the activities are happening, right? Your mind, you are getting scared also, you are experiencing it. That's when subtle body becomes active. And when your subtle body is also asleep, your mind is also asleep, you have deep sleep, that's when your causal body is active. And causal body is something which stores your gunas and your sanskars, your previous tendencies. Like some people say, right, this person is positive, this person is negative, he radiates this kind of vibe. So those sanskars, the vrittis, so to say, chitta vrittis, our tendencies, they are stored in our causal body, Karan Sharir, which becomes the reason for our rebirth. Okay, so when Mahapralaya happens, even our subtle bodies goes into the stomach of Mahavishnu. When we die, our gross body, only gross body is gone. Then our soul, along with subtle body and causal body, transmigrates. But when the pralay happens, Mahapralay happens, even the subtle body is gone. Only causal body is remaining, but the causal body is still remaining, which becomes the cause for our another birth whenever the universe is unleashed again by Mahavishnu. So all the three bodies we have, and the gross body we are aware of, but subtle body and gross body, the causal bodies are also there, which our Vedic scriptures expound upon in great detail. So yeah, sorry, carry on. Bit detour
Yeah,
as well.
this was much needed, and I think you covered this. Uh, what my understanding was that, you know, till the level of causal body, all these things are still external, in the sense they are not permanent. And b- mainly what is eternal is soul and super soul, and we need to be able to settle the fluctuations that happen at all these four levels. And that's what is like discussed in this shloka briefly. And so we talked about sense objects, gross body, subtle body, and now coming to causal body aspect of it, which is really our sanskar or our resolute determination of realizing God. So that also needs to be strengthened in order to practice meditation consistently. So, like for that, I wanted to discuss this chart. So we all have some desires. Now, the desire can be material desire or it can be spiritual desire. So let's first talk about the material desire. So the material desire exists in majority of people who, especially who are not God realized. In some people, it is diminished. So now we first focus on the ones where it exists. So material desire when exists, there are only two options, whether it can get fulfilled or whether it can get unfulfilled. If it get fulfilled, it results in greed because material desire can never satisfy us, right? Because we achieve something, we want even more than that, because that's not everlasting. It is temporary and it diminishes as a function of time. So all the material objects have that nature. So when it gets fulfilled, even then it results in greed, and then the cycle goes on. If it remains unfulfilled, now it depends how it is unfulfilled, like who is responsible for, who do we like make responsible for keeping our material desire unfulfilled. If it is someone whom we consider subordinate to us, then it will result in anger. Or if it is by someone who we consider superior to us, then it will result in fear. So, as you can see, all these three things are red because whenever material desire exists, it result in, irrespective of whatever is the result of that material desire, whether we get it or not, um, it results in all the negative emotions. So basically, material desire is not desirable. However, if it does not exist, that is really the state of like liberation or Brahmanand, uh, like where people do not have any desire. But an even higher state is to have a spiritual desire of serving and pleasing God, which is really the striving goal for Bhakti Yogi, which is Premanand, which is eternal sweetest bliss that one can experience with God. So once we understand this logic, I think it becomes important for us to uh, have a firm resolve of realizing God, because that is when we can exit this cycle of greed, anger, and fear, which is eternally associated with material desires. So, and that is what this, like, I think that relates with the causal body aspect of it, like building our sanskar with the right knowledge that our goal has to be God realization alone. And that is what we need to strive for. And by doing that, only we can rise above fear and anger and greed. So, and those saints who have actually achieved that, they remain in an eternally mukt state or an eternal state of sorry for the typo, liberation or salvation. So which covers both these categories. Nitinji, do you want to add anything?
No, I think you covered it. Material desire, I think it's a zero-sum game. It will lead to greed or anger or fear. So in Hindi, they call it pralobhan or bhai. These are the two things that the game that we are playing. Either we are enticed by something or we are fearful of something. So this game has been going on for a while, and we just need to figure out a game plan or make a firm resolve to get out of this game. See, it's like this. If we say, no, I'm going to continue with material desire. Now, let me ask a question. If somebody tells you, if you visit this country, okay, and when you get out of this country, you cannot take anything along. any of your possessions, to an extent you will be stripped of your clothes as well. So let's say people like to come to US or go to Europe, right? And they are told, you know what, and if you go to this country, you're not allowed, whatever earnings you've got, you have to stay, keep it there. Whatever house you have built, you have to keep it there. So much so that when you get on the plane, they will strip you of your clothes as well. Would you like to go to that country? But we have chosen to come to this material world. We get stripped of everything, every lifetime. No matter what we gain here, other than our spiritual bank balance, everything is stripped of us. And we continue to visit. So it's like revisiting the same country where the law is very clear, but our intellect is not thought deeply about it. So if we play this material desire game, we know what the results are. And it's not like overnight you start spiritual. It's a process, and that's why we need to start building it gradually. Even Karam Yoga is not so simple, right? You can't think about God. Now, attachment to God is there, but the next best thing to do is, if you cannot think about God, that I'm working for the pleasure of God, then after doing it, serve Krishna, Samarpana Mastu, you can say, okay, I put it at your feet. That practice will start purifying the consciousness as well. And God is like that bank. When you deposit something in the bank, it gives interest. So it'll double the impact and give it back to you, especially if you have done a pious deeds and given it back to God. He will enable you to do more of it. But don't do anything bad and then offer it back to God, because his rule is same. It's like a bank. I'll give you interest, then he'll give you more of negative. So don't do that. Take responsibility for it and say, give me wisdom so that I can do better next time. But any good deed that you do, if you take it, kartitva bhav, ownership for yourself, that's it. Again, you are playing the game in the material realm. But if you offer it back to God, then what you will get is, I mean, 1,000 times multiplied by what you gave actually. So that is the consciousness we need to build. And in the process, the spiritual desire will get nurtured as well, right? It's a journey. So these are some of the tools around it. Just wanted to add that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and that's why we have received like the special golden opportunity of getting human birth, right? Because that is the only way by which we can exit this cycle of material desire through bhakti, and we can attain God.
True. It's like a father giving 500 rupees to a son. Son goes out and does something good with that. So father will give enough 500 rupees again, maybe 1,000 next time. But son goes around and drinks his way to glory and gambles it, then he will get a couple of slaps and then not even that 500 rupees. Same thing happens with the human birth as well. If all that we do is sense indulgement, thinking of ourselves, frittering away that opportunity, then God says, okay, first of all, you are bound in karma. There's no escape from that. Secondly, you're not going to get it. You have to again go through the hoops to get it back again. So that's how it goes too.
Uh, so I think Shri Ramya ji's hand raised, and this is like more or less complete. So once you talk, I can then give it a closure, and then Nitin ji, you can take it up for, yeah.
Sure. Let me know. I have a couple of slides I wanted to.
Yeah.
Done.
Yes, Shri Ramya ji.
Okay, I just wanted to help out with the chat window. Raviji says, are hungry, thirsty, etc. material desires. Upon satiating, we don't get greed.
Material desire satiating, we don't get, no. It's like putting fuel to fire. So Raviji, if you are actually being able to satiate it, you'll probably be the only and the first person in the history of mankind who has been able to do it that way, because our scriptures are saying that you could extract oil out of sand, you could extract ghee out of water, but you cannot satiate or extract happiness out of your material desires. Scriptures are telling us you cannot. Even Indra, who's the king of heavenly planets, we all desire to go to Swarg, right? To enjoy all the luxuries. Yeah, we are so enamored by material luxuries. Just think of the access Indra would have to all the possible luxuries and enticements, right? Even he's suffering. And then forget about that. Go all the way up to Brahmalok. Brahmalok is the peak of material world. There also people have the same problems. They suffer with jealousy, anger, greed. So it cannot be satiated in the material world, is what our scriptures are telling us. Not possible. Impossible. It's a divine law. Because we
Yeah,
are spiritual and it is material. It doesn't have the ability to give.
yeah, and I think if he's saying this, that our desire is spiritual and then we are eating to just run the body, then that's a separate situation, right? That is simply you're fueling the machine, but the desire is God realization. Then that's a separate story altogether.
That desire is a stepping stone for a higher desire. That's a different thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So basically so like the next verse is going to be 5.29, which is the last verse of this chapter. So I thought at this point of time we can just I came across this very nice acronym for the entire chapter, which helps me remember what we have learned majorly from this chapter. So I thought I'll just introduce this, and with that we also have a kind of uh, doorway to the next verse that we will be discussing in the next session. So the chapter 5 is summarized as STEP, STEP, where S stands for staying in the world, which is how the chapter 5 started, like that karma sannyas. We should be practicing karma in renunciation rather than karma of renunciation. But basically, renunciation of attachment with perishable objects rather than renunciating our duties. So basically distinguishing between that, and so stay in the world, do your duties and be in God consciousness. So practicing the path of karma. That is the S part. T part is three doers. We talked, I think. If someone can just mute people if they get unmuted. So yeah, the T part is three doers. We learned about that for anything that happens through us. We are the ones who have desire. God is the one who sanctions the desire, and material energy of God is what enables that act to happen. So there are always three doers associated with the acts that happen through us. And then we also talked about equal vision, which is someone who is an elevated spiritual practitioner. They they get more closer towards having an equal vision towards all forms of living beings. And then finally, what we are going to discuss in the next session, which is really, really amazing, is the peace formula given by Krishna, that what kind of attitude can actually help us attain an eternal state of peace. So yes, that's what we will talk about in the next class. And with that, Nitinji, over to you. I'll stop sharing.
Sure.
Yes. And Falguni has raised hand.
Yes, Falguni.
Yes, Falguni, please go ahead.
I have, yeah, Radhe Radhe. Just one small question, which regarding the first slide, you said three parts, right? In the first slide, karma yoga, then Jnana yoga, and then the last one, the third one was bhakti yoga. And so I was thinking, I mean, what I understand is that are these really three mutually exclusive paths? No, right? Because you have to remove ignorance. You have to remove. You have after removing ignorance, you have to your mind is restless. You have to concentrate. Must learn and do meditation or try techniques which will help you to calm the mind. And then karma yoga is like you do action and then like dedicate all your action to God, and together with all this do bhakti. So then this three cannot be like three separate paths. No? I mean, they would be like kind of everything, like a synthesis of all things required together, which must be followed to do it. I mean, I am getting it right? I'm not very sure
Yes,
about it. So I was
Falguni.
just
They are same, and yet, so yes, all synthesis of all three are needed. It's called like a bullock cart, right? Even with Gyan and Bhakti, people say both are, it's like two bullocks you need to plow a field, right? So both have to go hand in hand. But yes, finally, when you get into the advanced stages, not for the sadhaks like me and most of the people, both are, all the paths are needed. But as you get deeper, right? then the way you approach it starts becoming a little more refined. Right? For example, knowledge is needed, but then and then devotion is needed as well. But then finally, do you want to achieve moksha, or do you want to serve God? That question will confront you, and that is where some of the technicalities come into the picture on how you approach your devotion or your day-to-day practice. Do you want to believe that you are God, aham brahmasmi, or do you want to say I'm just a servant of God? That is where it starts getting a little more nuanced conversation. But yeah, at the stage where most of the sadhaks are, all three are needed. You need knowledge to do devotion, and as you get more devotion, knowledge starts getting revealed from within as well, right? And then karam, anyway, we have to do throughout our life. So all three are needed. And then as we advance in this practice, then we start understanding the nuances of these, and then how to deepen or take any of the practice that we are doing to the next level. But yeah, all are needed. You're right. Okay, so let me share something. I was uh, listening to a lecture, and something very interesting revelation came to me, and I thought, okay, let me share it during the session itself. So there is a shloka where I think we have spoken about this concept, pendulum concept, in daily wisdom days, but I'm bringing it again, pendulum, right, which goes on either side, where we become very excited, very happy when something good happens to us, and upset and distressed when something bad happens to us. While Krishna is saying Sukha Dukhe Same Kritva Labha Labho Jaya Jayo Tato Yudhya Yujyasva Naivam Papam Avapsasi. Basically, he's saying in Sukh and Dukh, in good times and bad times, and in victory or defeat, in profit and loss, just stay balanced, sail through it. Don't get on the either side. Right? And then what does it mean, and why is it important for us, right? So I'll try to explain it, and love to hear from you as well what I've understood, because I was listening to a lecture and then it kind of really resonated. So what does it mean, stay neutral about it? I mean, do we have to become boring about it? We can't even enjoy something good that we have done, kind of a deal. So let's try to understand a little technically this aspect. Okay, so let's say this is our pap and punya, okay, merits and since papa, two sides of the thing, right? So they are maintained as a ledger. People who know accounting, they will understand that there's a ledger, and credits and debits both go hand in hand. So if you're doing papa and if you're doing punya, not necessarily one is going to cancel the other. So one will be maintained as one of the logs, the other is maintained as the other log. You'll get results for your punya separately, you'll get results for your papa separately. That is how our account is maintained. Okay. So let's say you enjoy, let's say something good happens. Now you're enthralled, you're very happy, very excited. You want to party around and tell the whole world, right? This is going against that principle where Krishna says, just tolerate it, okay? Don't get too excited about things. Learn to have that state of equanimity. But let's say you say, I'm going to enjoy it. So what happens is, you enjoyed. It comes at a price. So your punya, see, when you feel good, it comes at some price, right? So pop up your punya, you have exhausted. You feel good. Yes, sure. You pay something and you get something. You want to buy a Starbucks, you pay for it, you enjoy the drink, right? You enjoyed it. You enjoyed it, something got evaporated. Part of your punya is gone. Okay. Next time you are enjoying it, think that punya, wherever it was, part of it you have taken off. Now, if you have tolerated your pap, your sin is gone, right? Tolerated. Simply state equanimous, not that. So similarly, now let's say this thing continues. You kept on enjoying, you kept on. So you exhausted your sin, you know what's happening here. But the problem happens is, when you don't, then the bad time comes and we are not equanimous. Fine, you exhausted your papa, but in the process you created more, because now you're venting, complaining, whining. And if you look at it, you have replenished your papa back again, because you did not simply tolerate it with that attitude that, okay, whatever is happening, God, no, you know it best. I'm just going to sail through it. If you had done that, you had exhausted that papa. But because you did not, you started complaining, why did this happen to me? Or I deserved better. Now you have replenished it. And in the process, if you became bitter and you started becoming jealous, looking people around, everybody's happy and I'm not, then you have added to that pile of your papa. Okay, so this is why God is saying you exhaust it. This is an opportunity I'm giving you to exhaust it. And then finally what happens is, we know that punya will take you to Swarglok at best, right? And Pap will take you to Narklok. The God is still not there, right? So when God is still not there, now let's say you did perfect and you exhausted this, right? Only when you exhaust your Pap and Punyas, that's when God will meet you. This is how it goes, okay? So even in case of now, let me talk about the Raslila aspect of it. God actually gave darshan, right, to gopis. That was the credit for their punyas. Okay, he credited them for their punyas exhausted. Then he gave them the virah. So that was whatever ledger they had about Papa, that was also exhausted. And then finally, he took them to Maharaj. So basically, you have to exhaust both. And when we stay equanimous, that's where we are retaining our punyas, but we are burning our papas. This is how it goes. Finally, of course, you have to burn your punyas as well. We need punya. The reason we are sitting here today or get to read Bhagavad Gita or we are interested in this philosophy or listening to the words of Krishna is because of the only reason that we had enough punyas or merits in our past lifetime. So we need it. We need it as a stepping stone. Finally, Krishna will take care of that as well because he has to burn everything before he can give you, right? So this is how it goes. So next time you become overly disappointed, you are mourning for long, or you are overly excited, just think you are cutting into your punya and you are replenishing your papas. You are not even letting them get burnt. This is how the process goes. Now let me talk about devotee and God relationship, right? As a devotee, and this is God. And God, oops, what's happening? Oh, something is sending our way. You know what is it? God is sending his causeless grace. He's gracing us. So the problem is our bucket is upside down right now. Grace is there. It's not like God is not gracing us, but his bucket is upside down and we are not able to capture that. So we just need to invert it so that we can capture the grace. So this grace, if you look at it, do you see any interruption in it? It's incessant. It is continuous, right? It is continuous, which is called dhara, right? In order to tap into it, this is how you do. Now, if you look at it, just opposite of dhara is radha. So if you take radha nam, this is how you are actually tapping into the grace of God and making it a perpetual thing, right? So you can tap into the incessant thing which is already flowing. And that is the beauty of this name. And even in Maharaj, I was listening to that podcast the other day, it was beautiful. Radha is the entry to Krishna. To the way to father is through mother. And in this path, see, even when we are doing Krishna Bhakti, when you reach the peak of it, you'll understand Shakti. Upasana is very important. But Radha, if you start building that connect, Krishna will see. When you run after Krishna and Krishna is running after Radha. So if you do Radha, 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 Krishna will automatically, you're already building a connection with Krishna there, right? And then even in Maharashtra, what happened, gopis, when Krishna, they got some kind of a man or a pride that, what, we are so beautiful and Krishna is dancing with us, Krishna just vanished. And when Krishna vanished, then they became distraught, It's like you are riding high and all of a sudden you fall down. So they could not take that pain, and then finally they could see some footprints, and those footprints they could make out it's a special gopi which is not directly mentioned in Bhagavatam, but that special gopi is none other than Radharani. Okay, Jaydev ji had mentioned it. Okay, nobody has mentioned that she's being referred to as Rama by Shukdev ji, because if he had mentioned Radha's name, he would have gone into a trance or samadhi for 6 months, and Bhagavatam would not have gotten completed. But then it was Radharani, and then finally gopis find Radharani as well. In fact, they find her anklet on the way, and beyond a point, even the footprints are not visible. They say, what happened? Right? Did he leave Radha also? I said, no, he might have actually taken her on her shoulder. That's why the footprints have erased. But finally, they meet Radha, and Radha says, Krishna left me as well. But when you meet Radha, that means it's just a matter of time before you're going to meet Krishna. And after a while, along with Radha, they meet Krishna, where Krishna is waiting for them and takes them into Maharaj. So Radha is an entryway to Krishna, Krishna's heart. and also to tap into his incessant grace as well. So just wanted to call that out, the mahima or the importance of Radha name, or chanting Radha and thinking of her, remembering her. It's a very, very auspicious thing one can do and add to their routine. Just wanted to call that out. Yes, Sandhya, you wanted to say something?
It was so beautiful. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to add this, like I had also watched this video, and in another aspect that I got was like Radharani basically acted as guru for the gopis to correct that last mistake that they were doing and make sure that they get finally with with Krishna and achieve the ultimate bliss. So that was another beautiful aspect of it, which I just wanted to highlight. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, so Radharani is very important in the if we are building a connect with Krishna, right? He and way through father through mother is more sweeter and faster as well. That is how it goes. See, it's like this. We all have different shades to our personality that we deal with, right? Now with God, and we cannot, you know, personalize those shades. Let's say part of you is anger, part of you is love, part of you is mercy. If you could make a person out of it, how cool it would be, right? There was a movie I was watching, Inside Out. It's a pretty interesting movie for kids. You have a lot of emotions, how they get personalized in your head. But God has an ability. So the most compassionate, loving, and pure part of God, He has embodied it in form of Radharani, right? For the sake of devotees. And that is where, when we tap into it, Krishna is, automatically worshipped, or automatically, becomes devotees, starts building connect with the devotee. Automatically, it happens basically. So yeah. All right. With that, I can
And
stop. Any questions or anybody wanted to say?
Nitinji, there was a comment in the chat which I just read, which is an interesting one. So I'll read it out.
Sure.
I hope we are not exhausting our punyas by being in the session. Aparna ji says this.
Feeling good. No, this is fine. We're building on that basically. But yeah, when we ride the wave of becoming ecstatic, next time we hit a lottery or something happens, they say, okay, this too shall pass. And then if you miss somebody and you're feeling bad about it, then you can say miss too shall pass. Okay. So both ways you're staying equanimous. No, I think this is good. Satsang is good.
Nilesh ji is asking this Sukh Dukho, which verse, which
It is
chapter?
2.38. You can check it out. In fact, there is another, it's in chapter 2 only, which is one of, I try to remember that, which says, Matra Sparshastu Kaunteya. I think,
Shitoshna.
Anitya Tans Titikshasva Shitoshna Sukha Dukkada, right? And then it says Tans Titikshasva Bharata. So Krishna is saying that, when you come in contact with sense objects, the fleeting feeling of that, when you come in contact with any sense object, whether it's touch, sight, hear, taste, whatever, that's a fleeting feeling. If you can simply tolerate that without getting carried away, then also you'll get a lot of grace around it, right? So he says, just learn to tolerate. So when you tolerate, what you get in return is much, much more higher, is essentially the message in Bhagavad Gita. Our senses, see, our mind gangs up with one of the senses always. It's a ganging up that happens, right? Sometimes with sight, sometimes with taste, and mind says, go for it, go for it, go for it. And that brings about our downfall lifetime after lifetime. Why? First of all, it is resulting in binding karma. Secondly, it is solidifying our belief that there is some kind of happiness in this world. Thirdly, it is feeding into our causal body, which will become the cause of another birth, right? And our sanskars. So in all sense, he's saying just learn to tolerate that part. Great. 10 o'clock.
Yeah, just Falguni ji has raised and Pratusha ji. So yeah, maybe Pratusha ji, because you haven't spoken so far, you can go first and then Falguni ji.
It's zero sum. Akshata ji is asking, it's not even zero sum, it's actually negative sum. It could be negative sum also, because we are not truly gaining anything out of riding the waves of the material desires and cravings that we get. What are we going to gain out of it? Let's say you made a sattvic desire, at best you'll get punya. But that punya is also exhaustible. It's not something which is going to last forever. So in that sense, it's end of the day you are losing only if we continue on this scheme. Yeah.
Okay, Radhe Radhe sir, Radhe Radhe Sandhya. Actually, I just want to uh, explain a different view. Okay, so it goes like this. Okay, now imagine you're a tree, and now in the Gyan mark, you're saying, I'm not the leaf. I'm not the bark. I'm not the twigs. I'm not this. I'm not that. I'm not the roots. And I'm not the. Then it comes to the elemental level. I'm not the earth. I'm not the fire. All of that. Okay. And now you have come to the core. Okay, which is the energy, which is what we are talking like soul. Okay. So that is how the Gyan mark goes, where you go and you just merge into the God. Now, being in that in that point where you know that you have merged. Now you look at everything above. You see the grass, you see other trees, you see everything out there, and will you think that you are different from them? So that is where bhakti comes. Then you understand that you are everything. So now be coming into that, sir, what he said about the pendulum part, right? So being a tree, I will say, oh my God, the rain is coming, the wind is so this, that, all, and then I'm increasing my demerits. Maybe I'm getting upset about all of those things. And when nice water is coming, good earth, everything is coming, I'll say, wow, everything is nice. And then that merits are coming. Now, when we become equanimous, I am okay with whether the rain is coming or the good environment is provided for me. So when that equanimity comes, we are actually in yoga. We are in line with what God wants, whatever God wants for us. So equanimity means we are okay with whatever is coming our way. So this is another perspective.
Yeah, it's said,
Yeah.
right? When whatever we want happen, we say that it's Bhagwan ki kripa, and when it doesn't happen, it's Bhagwan ki ichha. So that attitude basically.
Yeah. That's it.
Falguni ji?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a little bit to what Nitinji said about the pendulum example, and this is just came across something which I was hearing a few days back, one of the lectures which I was hearing a few days back, and in that he said that one of the practice that a person can follow, he just gave an example that one of the practice that a person can follow in order to kind of remain equanimous is, like, say for example, someone is insulting you or something like that, and you're very hurt by it. So you just think like that, okay, he's insulting me, my bad karmas are being burnt up because of this, and stay in that, stay that way. And if someone is praising you too much and saying, oh, you've done a fantastic job, so don't let your ego be inflated and fly sky high and say, no, this is all going to burn up my good karma. So just like in that, like think about it in that manner and try to stay in stability. So I just came across this talk and I heard this examples. I thought it adds something which we can practice, not always, but sometimes, which might like help us to remain equanimous in all situations. So I just wanted to share this. Thank you very much.
Yes, Falguni ji, let me throw another spin to it now. So when you accept praises, again, your papas are exhausted. And when you accept criticism, your papas are exhausted. So next time, you simply tolerate it, which is going to help. So that is why staying equanimous in both the cases are going to help us as well. In fact, the better way, even to accelerate it further, I would say somebody who criticizes you and says bad things to you, if it is true, then take it, right? Anyway, it's going to burn your papas and increase your tolerance and draw a lot of grace. To multiply that grace, you even send out a prayer for that person, that God give them wisdom so that they can think clearly and not accrue any bad karma because of it. If you can actually pray for them without getting negative, even better. This is the right way to go about it.
Yeah,
Anyway, which one? Sorry.
purification, right? It says that Nindak Niyare Rakhiye Angan Kutir Samhai.
Bin sapun pani.
Yeah. So beautiful.
You're talking about Sat and Asat, right? So we are playing the game of Asat right now. And this reminds me of, I think it's in Shiv Puran, which says, Uma kahu main anubhav apna, Sat Hari Bhajan, Jagat Sab Sapna. So everything is like a dream, Asat, temporary. It'll just vanish. Nothing will matter other than Hari Bhajan, or the wealth of God's name that we have acquired in this world. Everything else will remain here. Nothing will matter. Even when we are asleep, does it anything matter? Only when we wake up, our world comes into the being, right? We are not even aware who we are. So it's one day we'll sleep and will not wake up, and then again this drama will start in some other body, right? So yeah. Okay, I had one more minute and I'll wrap up. But thank you, Sandhya, for reinitiating these sessions and having these wonderful conversations. So,
no more thanks to me, all thanks to
yeah, well, the entire
Radhika
group. I mean,
and you. Yeah. And everybody who's like, yeah,
no,
actually,
everybody.
everybody who's contributing to the content. It's just,
No, that's great. It's a great initiative and good to be back and doing Bhagavad Gita. Now that not as frequently as we used to, but it's good. Once a week is good, good refresher. So
we are all getting satsang. So
yes, that's more important.
so I think because it's already 10:09, Pratusha ji, if we can have discussion later. Yeah, thank you. So, okay, thank you everybody for joining. And next time, Peace Formula. See you all same time, same place. Radhe Radhe.
Radhe Radhe. Thank you, everybody.